So what's up?
Not too much, man. We actually um, had a birthday party for my niece tonight, so had to run down to North
Nice.
Liberty and tackle that. They did bowling and pizza ranch, so kids had a blast.
They did what? Ball egg?
Bowling.
Bowling down.
There you
Okay.
go.
Okay.
Yeah,
Bowling and Pizza Ranch. Nice. I like
yeah,
Pizza Ranch. They don't have those out here in Colorado, and
sure.
shame. It's a shame. The pizza. Well, I like the chicken from Pizza Ranch, and the mashed potatoes.
Yep,
That's more. But
it's a big hit. The kids,
yeah,
I mean, they like the cookies and the ice cream, all the sweets.
yeah, of course. Um. So yeah. So what's up with you though? What's going on with you?
Staying plenty busy. We got three little ones, so trying to
Yeah.
keep up with them. Our oldest, she's 8, soon to be 9, doing basketball for the first year. Also started
Nice.
softball practice, so plenty busy.
Yeah. Hey, if you need a coach, I just talked to somebody whose wife is in the co-athletic Coe College Hall of Fame as a softball pitcher.
Yeah,
Um, was maybe your teammate. So yeah, I mean, hey, you need a coach.
yeah. So I think I know who you're talking about. Was it
Yeah,
Clayton? Was he on your
yeah,
podcast? So
yeah.
funny story. Know his wife very well. We actually graduated high school together. So
Oh, really?
yeah, yeah,
What?
yeah.
Wow.
Small world.
Yeah, no kidding. Huh.
Yeah, she's a heck of a softball player.
Yeah, how was she in high school? Like, did she like take you guys to state or anything?
Yeah, so we had a few good ones in my class, and then also the class above and class below. But yeah, they won the state title. It would have been my I think it was junior year.
No kidding.
Did very well senior year, but I don't think they were able to repeat. But I'm sure they placed pretty high.
Nice. And
So
she ended up marrying Clayton. Huh, that's funny.
yeah, so
Like
so yeah, we're good friends with them. That I've got two girls and they've got three, so they get together and go crazy all the time. So
yeah. Do you reminisce at all about like the co days, you
oh
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we when we get together, we do, and I'm sure our wives have heard the stories countless times now. So
Well, good. Well, I haven't heard them, so I'm excited to kind of hear them and dating back to the Highland Riverside days, like
sure.
those were kind of the days that I recalled watching you wrestle, and just kind of seeing you through the circuit. But yeah, so I guess you went to high school at Highland Riverside. What town did you live in?
So I grew up in Riverside.
Okay.
The high school, it's a Riverside address, but it's between Riverside and Ainsworth
Okay.
off of 218. So it's
Huh.
like ten minutes south of Riverside. Not even.
Gotcha. Yeah. So did you grow up in Riverside or did you move there or like how did you end up in Riverside?
Yeah, grew up there. Both sides of the family were there. My parents both went to Highland, graduated together in
Nice.
1985. So um, my mom's side was a big family for the most part, all of her siblings, and I had a ton of cousins that were, going through the school. And then my dad's side was also in Riverside. So both sets of grandparents were there, aunts, uncles, cousins. There weren't many that left. There were maybe a
Yeah.
couple, but most everyone stuck around that area. So
What about you? So it sounds like you're in the North Liberty area, so you must have moved a little bit of ways, huh?
yeah, so we're in Cedar Rapids now.
Oh, okay.
Went to Coe, so familiar with Cedar Rapids, and then actually, it's funny you mentioned Colorado. I know you're out there now. In 2012, when I graduated from Coe, we spent 5 years, my wife and I, out in Colorado. Lived out there for
Really?
5 years. So, yeah,
Doing what?
I had a unique opportunity to move out there and work for a guy that was doing some niche real estate stuff. So my first year just with connections. Had a teammate that I wrestled with at Coe that his family lived in Highlands Ranch, south of Denver. So moved in with them for a little bit. I was working over in Littleton, and then
Hmm.
eventually got my own place in Littleton, an apartment. And then we were in Littleton for a year. And then we actually bought a house over like on the eastern side of Aurora,
Yeah.
like Smoky Hill and E470. So we were over there for 3 years. So yeah, we loved it out there, but Iowa's got a way of bringing people back, I guess, and the family aspect played a role in that too. So
Yeah, but no, cool that you kind of got out a little bit and saw a different part of the country. And of course, like you said, Iowa just has a way to, and family too. You just kind of get, it's comforting,
yeah,
as kids grow up, like I grew up around my grandparents, and so it's just, I don't know, wouldn't want it any other way. So,
sure. Yeah,
uh,
we enjoyed our time out there, and
yeah.
we made some friends and been back a few times. We like to vacation a little bit up in Breckenridge, so
Nice.
sometimes just Micah and I, my wife, and then sometimes we've taken the kids once or twice too. So
Yeah. So you actually moved a little bit. You kind of are a black sheep of the Westfall family. You moved.
I suppose, yeah.
Are they
That,
still in the area? Is like that's still like Westfall Village, basically, right there?
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mentioned I was down at a birthday party tonight
Yeah.
with my niece. That was my sister. They live in Riverside, so that's why we picked North Liberty tonight because it was kind of in the middle of
Yeah.
us and them. So
Nice.
yeah,
So then obviously, growing up, what did you do all like the sports circuit? I kind of ask everybody that. It's, you just tried all the sports growing up or what?
yeah. The pros and cons to being at a small school, but I guess one of the
Yeah, yeah.
pros is, I mean, shoot, my graduating class was probably 45 people.
Really? Is
Half,
Highland Riverside still around?
yes, yeah, yep,
Okay.
they're still there. And actually,
Nice.
numbers probably haven't changed too much. Wrestling,
Good.
they're a 1A school when I was
Yeah.
there. Football, actually, my first couple of years, the Highland partnered with Lone Tree, and then we were playing when we
Really?
were
Okay.
partnered with Lone Tree for football. We were Class 2A, and then my junior year we separated and dropped down to Class A. So um, I'd gone out as a freshman, didn't play a whole lot. I was 103 pounds as a freshman, is what I wrestled at. So you can imagine when you're class 2A, 103 pounds, you're probably not going to get a ton of playing time. But
Hmm.
then I'd grown a little bit by the time I didn't go out my sophomore year just because I wasn't playing much, wanted to stay healthy, focus on wrestling a little bit. And then my junior year we separated. I'd grown a little bit, but we dropped to class A, so went back out and
There you go.
had a lot of fun with it. I also did baseball a few years, did a lot growing up. Really loved playing baseball, and then in high school also did I think a year or two of track. So a little bit of everything.
There you go. Yeah. Like you said, I grew up in a small town, Monona, MFL, Marmac. Like it was easier to just do all the sports. You could play because I mean there weren't as many kids out. So like you did get playing time as long as you were okay athlete,
Yeah,
or you had a little size to you.
yeah. And for me, it was a good way to burn some energy and socialize with your friends. So
Yeah. How many siblings do you have?
just one younger sister.
One younger sister. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and how did wrestling? How did you pick up wrestling?
Yeah. So um, I think part of it, right, grew up in Riverside, which is 20 minutes from the University of Iowa.
Yeah.
And coming up in the heyday of the University of Iowa wrestling programs, so in the 90s and early 2000s. So
Yeah.
I think that was part of it. My dad wrestled in the 80s at Highlands, so he wasn't too serious about it, but
Mm-hmm.
really enjoyed and loved the sport, talked a lot about it. He wrestled for Gary Curtis was the coach who's now in the Iowa High School Athletic Hall of Fame. So
Yeah. Okay.
growing up, I got to hear about how his class, which was 1985, how they went undefeated in duels, and all of his stories
Wow.
about high school wrestling. So I think that played a role. And then on my mom's side of the family, I was on the younger end. Had a few cousins that I looked up to that did it too. So I think wanted to, try to make my own way in the same sport.
Yeah, it's cool. I've gotten a lot of both sides of the coin, like where I've talked to quite a few people who none of the family wrestled, and then it's interesting that way. But I also enjoy hearing the other side of the coin of, the family does it, and like, you just kind of grow up in it, and you bounce off like your uncles and your dad. Like my dad wasn't. I mean, he knows that he wasn't very good. He won one high school tournament, but I didn't care. I don't care. Like
Yeah,
he's the reason I wrestled, and honestly, he's probably the reason I'm here right now is because he introduced me to the sport and just got me going. So like, it's just fun
right.
to hear the appreciation, for those people who may not have been the greatest, but they just love the sport.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, for
so
sure.
did you so it sounds like you talked to your dad quite a bit about his his wrestling story and like growing up and talk to him about how his wrestling impacted him.
Yeah. I mean, they had a good group of guys that he graduated with. And like I said, I got to hear a lot about Coach Gary Curtis, who
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to, when I was in junior high at Highland Riverside, he was the junior high coach. So I got
No
to
kidding.
experience getting coached by him for a couple years too, which was a neat experience. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, and like I said, it was always just kind of around being in that area. Like, shoot, some of my
Yeah.
early days, I can remember watching on Iowa Public Television, the University of Iowa, or even when they weren't on, I can remember going down to my grandparents' house. My grandpa had an old AM radio, and we'd pull the meets up on the radio and listen to them. I can remember some of that
Wow.
too. So just kind of always being around it.
Yeah. Did you go to Iowa City then much? Like, did you do Ubasa growing up? I mean, that seems like that was everybody's freaking place.
Yeah. So eventually I did. I mean, I started. I mean, youth sports in general has just changed so much, not only youth
Right.
wrestling, but I
Yeah.
started like almost everyone else probably back then. I started pretty early. I think the first tournament I did was kindergarten, and it was one tournament, our home tournament, and
Yeah. Same.
we were practicing maybe once a week. I don't know if I was going to all the practices, but I went to one tournament. And then first grade, it was probably the home tournament and a tournament down the road. And it ramped up a little bit from there. I wasn't winning a lot early. Second grade, I would say I started to find some success, wrestling a little bit more. And fortunately, my parents, they made me stick with it because when I was younger, and I still do, I don't like losing. So I would get some competition anxiety, and I would,
Sure.
Monday, Tuesday, they'd be like, "Hey, there's a tournament. Do you want to go?" And I'd say, "Yeah, sign me up." And back then, you'd fill out the form and mail the check in, and come Friday night, I'd start to get nervous and wouldn't want to go. And my parents wouldn't let me out of it. They'd say, "Well, we already mailed the $10 in, so we've got to go. They've already bracketed you in." So they kind of held my feet to the fire there. But in second grade, I mentioned how it changed so much now. It's like when you're at that age, you can go to however many state tournaments or national tournaments. Back then, there was no Pee Wee State or Super Pee Wee State. My dad was helping coach the youth program. We used to have to go over to Oskaloosa to the districts, and he was going to coach. And he had actually packed my stuff, and we got there. It was like, "Hey, I know you're in second grade, but if you want to compete, you can enter the third and fourth grade division." And it was like, "Okay, well, shoot, let's do it." So entered the bracket at, shoot, I think I was 55 pounds in second grade. Managed to win a few matches and qualify for the state
Wow.
tournament, and went and got my butt whooped a couple of times. But that was kind of the first taste of the moving out a little bit from our, southeastern Iowa area. Um,
Yeah.
and then I would say probably around third grade, went to state, maybe probably around third or fourth grade, I did go up to Ubasa. That was the club. You'd run into guys wearing the yellow shirts is what I remember, and probably took a loss to someone, and I don't know if my mom or dad had caught wind of the club, and then yeah, I would say probably third or fourth grade was when I started going up to Ubasa.
Yeah. Wow. So you qualified for state in second grade illegally.
Illegally, I guess, resting up. And
That's
I was a,
awesome.
I was a summer birthday, so I was, I had in my small school, I guess, first graders that year that were probably older than me. So I was a young second grader.
Wow. That's
But
hey, that's funny. That's sneaky of your dad too, a little bit there. Yeah, good call there.
well, yeah, I think there was some strategy in there because they probably knew if it was on the calendar, I would have got nervous and wanted out of it, and we just
Mhm.
showed up there with my stuff. Maybe that was the play.
Yeah. That story rings eerily similar to somewhat of my story where, yeah, I was the same way. My dad would sign me up. Yeah, you want to go to this tournament? Yes, you betcha. Sign me up. And yeah, that Friday or that Thursday before that Friday tournament, I would be like, I don't want to go. Like, oh my God, what have I done? You know? And I obviously, like you said, well, we already paid for it. We're going. So I'm curious, when did you or did you ever get over that competition anxiety, or how'd you learn to deal with that because that was something I never really was able to deal with. Like that haunted me forever.
Yeah, shoot. I would say that, I mean, that was a real thing. And for me at least, it got better over time. I never really handled losing that great when I was young, but I don't know. I like to think by junior high, you start, at least for me, I started to handle it maybe a little better. And by high school, you get those losses and you're trying to learn from them. And back then, my mom or whoever, we didn't have trainers really that would videotape the matches. So she would videotape them. And I remember I never wanted to watch, of course, the matches that I lost. So probably should have been a learning tool that unfortunately was never used, but probably got a little better in high school. And then college, I don't know. At that point, for me, probably a better outlook on just life in general. So didn't take it as serious, and
Hmm.
really did use the losses at that point more of a opportunity to learn and improve and get better. So
Yeah. When did you start to turn the corner, I guess, like wrestling wise, growing up? It sounds like a little bit like maybe like your third grade year after you made it to state, in second grade, you kind of maybe, but when did you really start to find some success in the sport?
um, yeah, probably third, fourth grade. I had gone to state a couple times. I think fourth grade was maybe the first time I'd placed at the AU state tournament, which
Nice. Yeah.
at that time, it's like, okay, this is pretty cool,
Yeah.
to go up to that tournament and make it onto the award stand was pretty neat, and was able to do that a few times. So I'd say, yeah, probably third or fourth grade, and it's probably no coincidence that's also about the time that I ventured out of my own room a little bit, started going up
Mhm.
to Ubasa, and frankly get my butt whooped by some pretty good guys in the area. So that certainly helped.
Yeah. Did you go a lot with like did you have a group of guys from Highland Riverside that you traveled with or a club that you went to in Highland Riverside? You said your dad ran, the kids club a little bit. Like did you have, you know, a group of people you went everywhere with? Like you hopped in a van and just hit up
Yeah,
tournaments?
I wouldn't say we had much of that. There was, as I got a little older, maybe another guy or two in my class, but there weren't really, um, throughout those elementary years. My class was a little bit bare. There was a group of guys a couple years older than me that were pretty into it, and then
Mhm.
another group of guys that were maybe a year or two younger than me. So um, we didn't have a ton of that. So I mean, frankly, back to the boss. So it was kind of neat then to know
Yeah.
some guys outside of on the seldom occasion, someone in your class would show up and go to a tournament with you. So I think that certainly helped kind of expand, who you knew and relationships, that type of stuff.
Yeah, so you were growing up, you were kind of the Lone Ranger, it sounds like a little bit in terms of wrestling. Like, I mean, did anyone in your grade go out for an extended period of time at any point while you were kind of going through AAU and all that stuff?
Um, a good friend of mine, Matt Furlich, he wrestled with me at Coe. He started late, so
Hmm.
I don't know, fifth, sixth grade maybe.
Okay.
He was my class, but other than that, not really anyone in my class. There were a guy, like I said, guys that were a couple years older, that you knew a little bit just because it's
Hmm.
a small school, and but yeah, no one that was super close to me in those early years.
I know you were younger then, but did that, make it difficult to train when you were younger? Just even going to practice and you're wrestling kids that are a couple years older than you, and when you're, fourth grade and you're wrestling a sixth grader, like that's a big difference, you know?
Yeah, I mean, probably a little bit, which again is probably why it was pretty important for my parents to recognize that and eventually give me, a better training environment.
Yeah.
Which at the time, now there's clubs all over the place, and it's you can kind of pick and choose. But back then, like I said, at least from what I remember, Ubasa at the time was the club. So
Yeah.
there weren't a lot of them popping around like they are now. So that was the obvious one, and it was pretty neat to work out of the University of Iowa wrestling room too.
Yeah.
To go up there and train and work out. So it was fun.
Did you have any, I guess let me rephrase a little bit. Did you find it difficult to continue to go out for wrestling when you were the only one? Like typically you have a group of friends especially when you're younger, you have kids in your grade that go out and it makes it fun. Like, did you have anything like that where you're like, man, what am I doing? I'm the only kid. I'm like, why don't I go play basketball where everyone else is doing? You know
Sure.
what I mean?
Yeah, no. I mean, unfortunately, I guess at that point I was winning enough to have fun, and that was kind
True.
of
Yeah.
what I needed to keep chasing it. And
Mhm.
like I said, my fortunately my parents were encouraging me and supporting me and keeping me engaged. So
Yeah. Was there ever a point though that you thought about quitting throughout like your younger years or, in high school? Was there ever, yeah, a point where you were like, man, I'm done with this. It's not as fun as I thought it was, or it's not as fun as it once was.
no, I mean, I always
Mhm.
liked it, and I
Yeah.
played other sports, but wrestling was always kind of the preferred sport.
Yeah.
Baseball, I loved baseball, and then I got to a point in high school where I couldn't hit the ball, and it bothered me. And football, like I said, when I was 103 pounds, 14 years old as a freshman, that wasn't going to work out too great either. Although fortunately, when we separated back and dropped to Class A, that helped. Had a lot of fun
Yeah.
with it. But no, I always loved wrestling. So
Yeah. Did you ever try basketball?
I I never played like an official basketball
Gotcha.
game. I
Yeah.
mean, we would always play like on the playground and
Of
stuff,
course. Yeah.
and I can get around a little bit, at least I think so. So
Yeah. When did you start to really focus on wrestling and like, okay, this is probably my sport, you know?
yeah, shoot. I was fortunate to do Ubasa for a few years, and then I was also fortunate at the time. You probably know the name Strip Matter, the Young Guns Club out of
Yeah, yeah.
Pennsylvania. So Jody and his brother John run that now. John spent quite a bit of time in Eastern Iowa. I was fortunate enough to cross paths with John probably like fifth, sixth, seventh grade. Um, and he actually started doing private lessons with me. We had like small mat in a detached garage down in Riverside. John would come in and we do one-on-one work. And John was just a great guy and a stud, really knows what he's doing. He was a Division II national champion for UPJ, Pittsburgh Johnstown. So, and that name has always carried a lot of weight, strip matter name. So,
Yeah.
um, when he started, Ubasa was great to get the club environment and get those workout partners and kind of level
Mhm.
up. But I'd also say then spending time with John in those fifth, sixth, seventh grade years, it was good to get that one-on-one for my personal development. So that was probably a big part of it throughout that progression.
Yeah, how'd you run into him?
John was for a while, he was, I think, teaching at Iowa City, Regina, and I think he was also maybe helping coach there at one point. And
Hmm.
I don't know how, but he became pretty close friends with some good friends of mine in Riverside.
Hmm.
A good buddy of mine, his older brothers. So he was then a little bit around the Highland program and coming into our room and helping out. So just really by chance of him being in the area and being around wrestling and fortunate enough that our paths crossed.
Yeah. Yeah, really. How did you end your AAU career? So as you kind of got to seventh and eighth grade, did you start to, is that when you also started to jump another level?
Um, I like to think so. I mean, my placings were pretty consistent. I think the highest I ever placed at AAU State was maybe fourth, and really placed from fourth grade on. I think so. There wasn't a lot of variance within there. So but man, I reflect back on those AU years and some of those brackets. I mean, you've got more weight classes, but you don't have class 1A, 2A, and 3A separating you. So it's fun to, if you catch something somewhere or shoot, my mom probably has all the books somewhere just to run through like old brackets or old place
Yeah.
winners. 'Cause there's just hammers everywhere if you look through some of that stuff.
Yeah. Was there one or two or a handful of guys that you can remember that you continuously crossed paths with? Like every tournament you just knew they were going to be there and they were going to be at your weight. You're going to have to wrestle them.
Yeah. I didn't really have, I mean, not that I can remember. There's no name that sticks out.
Mhm.
Really that Iowa City West group were the guys that were kind of whooping my butt. Nate Moore was real tough. I remember one year at the Highland tournament, my dad was doing the pairings, so I ended up giving up some size and going into a pretty good bracket with Derek St. John and a few others. Got my butt whooped. So it was, yeah, I remember taking fourth place at the home tournament one year when I was, having a lot of success, but
Yeah.
learning experience.
Yeah. Yeah. You sound like you did take your fair share of losing, you know? Like I'm just curious why you kept doing it when you hate to lose so much. I mean, I'm obviously you won too. Like don't get me wrong, but like you always seem like you got beat at least once, you kind of came up short, fourth place in fourth or third or fifth like you. So there was a loss in there always. It sounds like why did you keep going out if you kept losing,
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of what wrestling is, I feel like. And maybe that's easy for me to say though, because yeah,
yeah.
never really in any of those years and even, progressing into high school and college, never really achieved what I set out to do. So maybe that's what it was that kept me coming back.
Yeah. Yeah. Were you just ready to go your freshman year then? I mean, but now instead of wrestling, two years separated, you're four. So like you're a freshman wrestling seniors. I mean, but were you just unfazed going into high school and you felt prepared and ready to win four state titles if that was your goal?
I think I would say from my experience and shoot from probably third or fourth grade on, I was not wrestling as much as sub, I'm sure, but probably getting close to 50 matches a year.
Yeah.
Mostly local tournaments. Districts and state was really all we were doing. It wasn't a year-round thing, but I do think if you go through the AAU circuit to that extent for however many years that is, 5, 6, 7 years,
Yeah.
you should be to a certain extent somewhat ready. Now,
Yeah.
I was probably fortunate that smaller school, class 1A. Also, I was 103 pounds, so I wasn't wrestling a bunch of seniors and giving up strength or anything like that. And just also by chance, I mean, I there for a while, it was like, man, am I going to be big enough for 103 pounds? Because I think my eighth grade year, I was 90 pounds. I think my seventh grade year, I was 80, but I hit a
Yeah.
little bit of a growth spurt. And I was fortunate to cut down to 103 from maybe 110 or 115 pounds. So it was a little bit of a cut,
You had to cut weight.
a little bit. Yeah.
Wow. I was wondering
So,
as you were, as right before I asked, or talked about your freshman year, I was like, man, I wonder what he weighed. But I know you're saying it was only 10, maybe 10, 12 pounds. But when you're already that small, you've never done it before. Probably,
yeah.
you probably never really cut consistent weight before. Um, and like I said, you're already that small. You don't have much weight to lose anyway. I'm sure it was kind of difficult at times.
Yeah. I mean, you're 14 years old, so
Yeah.
everything's a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
But eh, as I got a little older, my junior year was probably the worst for cutting weight. And then college, there were a couple of years. I don't reflect on my freshman year as being a year where I remember cutting
Yeah.
weight too terribly bad. I think it was, probably a 10-pound cut that you get a 2-pound allowance, and now it's an 8-pound cut, and you're
Yeah.
losing 4 pounds in a practice. So
Yeah.
it wasn't anything too extreme.
Yeah. What was the most you've ever lost in a practice?
Um, Probably 8 pounds.
Sounds about right.
That'd be like in college, probably early in the season.
Really? In college? Okay. I'm a little surprised by that. Typically I feel like college practices, at least the ones that I'm being around now, it's a lot it's not quite as intense. Like you're only going for an hour and a half, maybe, you
Yeah,
know. In high school, I mean, shoot, we went for like two and a half. Like we
yeah,
were grinding. And in college, it's much more it's just much more detailed and like focused and structured, I guess.
yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. But it
Yeah.
was, I mean, definitely whether it was late high school or early college years, early in the season when you've got a little bit more fat on you, and
Yeah, a little more Mountain Dew. Yeah.
yeah,
8 pounds though, that's pretty good. That's pretty
yeah.
good.
Not
I
usually. Usually I was more
right.
like a 3 pound. So
Yeah.
3 pound
And though
practice.
but those ones are kind of fun when you're done and you get out and you're like, man, I feel like I lost quite a bit. Like at that point. And then you get on the scale and you're like, whoa, like yeah, like you're kind of like pumped.
Yep.
So your freshman year, you come along and did you anticipate the season you were gonna have? I mean, did you have goals and aspirations? Like, did you write things down? Was that your type of personality?
Um, I wouldn't say at that point that it was my type of personality, but I do remember in high school we would at the beginning of the year write our goals down.
Yeah.
And at my freshman year, my goal was to finish top three in the state, which I came short of. So, but I knew I was ready. For every eighth grader going into high school, there's probably some intimidation there. So you're not
Sure.
totally sure what to expect, who's going to be in the weight class. You don't know. You just kind of show up and go about your business. But fortunately, I got off to a pretty good start, and stayed healthy. I had good workout partners. In high school that year, Jordan Flory was a guy. He was 2 years older than me. So he was a junior that year, probably 16 or 17 when I was 14. But I was 103. I think he was maybe 119 that year. So he was pushing me, and I was familiar with him because in junior high, when I was in junior high, I would go through the junior high season and then jump into the high school room a little bit just to work out. And he was the guy that I'd go with. So I was fortunate to have him kind of help and show me the way because he'd been through it for a couple
Yeah.
of years too. So it was helpful to have that at that point too. So
Yeah. And, you need someone to push you and kind of give you your lumps, I don't want to say there's like an initiation or anything by any means, but I'm saying like when you go from junior high to high school or high school to college, like that first, there's like a learning curve there, and you kind of get your butt kicked a little bit, you know. Um, but the good kids come out of it, like they get
yep,
better, and as the season progresses, they start to hang, hang they start to kick people's butts, I guess, lack of a better
yeah,
word. Um, so yeah, so I don't know what I'm trying to say, but sounds like that was your path a little bit.
yeah. That was definitely it. And fortunately for me, I think I maybe had the opportunity and maybe earned the respect a little earlier because I started
True.
going in those junior high years. And I can tell you there were probably some times when I'd walk in the room as a 13-year-old and get paired with him. I don't know how much he wanted to wrestle me those first couple of years because I did take some lumps. So um,
True. Good point. I mean, yeah, you're a sophomore in high school, varsity guy, and you're, thinking you're pretty good. And yeah, this seventh or eighth graders coming in and they're like, "Hey, you two," and you're like, "Seriously? Like what? Really?"
yeah,
And then there's probably a sense of pride and then a little bit of ego, to
oh
really
yeah.
just, oh, I'm sure you
But
did take some lumps.
I, I do think though there is a very big advantage in having someone within your room, and maybe it can be a coach too, but I think it's even better if there's a teammate within a weight class or two of you that can whoop you a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Because
go ahead.
it doesn't, it doesn't do you a whole lot of good to just go in there and beat the crap out of everyone. And, because there's always going to be someone out there, right? That's kind of the thing with
Yeah.
wrestling is you're just not getting to experience it, in your own practice room.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're not getting beat, and if you're continuously doing the beating, you get, like you said, I mean, there's somebody out there that's training to beat you. And so you kind of have to expand your circle at that point to find people who put the beat down on you, so that way you can continue to get better. If you're always doing the
Yep.
winning and never the losing, I don't know.
Yeah. So those early years, like I said, Jordan Flory, he was uh, great friend, heck of a workout partner. There were a couple other guys too. Travis Becker, Kendall Cole, Justin Nugel. When I was younger, those guys were all setting a good example. They were all
Yeah.
state place winners. Shoot, I think Justin Nugel had set the record for career wins my freshman year. So I got to see him do that. And then
Yeah.
like maybe that's something I could go do at some point. So I think that helped me as well.
Yeah. It sounds like, Highland Riverside may not be the most prestigious 1A school, but they've had a pretty consistent and pretty good wrestling legacy, throughout the years. Like they're place winners, multiple place winners, like they're having people, um, even though few in numbers, but they're strong. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. My freshman year, like I said, we did not have a good duel. We always struggled filling a whole team, but
Yeah,
we had half a dozen guys that were tough, and a few that could place at the state tournament. I think my freshman year we finished 10th at the state tournament, and then my sophomore year I think we finished fifth. So
wow.
we were always a better tournament team than a dual team, and the tougher the tournament was, we kind of did a little better.
Nice. Yeah.
Just because small in numbers, right? But pretty high quality. So unfortunately, just couldn't quite field a full team. But my cousin actually uh, was my assistant coach in high school too, Nick Cole. He played a big role on my development as well. He won a state title for Highland in 2000. And you think about experiences. I was fortunate to be sitting in the bleachers at Vets when he
Heck
won
yeah.
that. And I was probably 9 or 10 years old at the time. So it was like, man, that's pretty cool. Nick went and wrestled at Coe College and then came back and was coaching at Highland. I think his first year was my freshman year. So um, he was running the program kind of similar to, his experience at Coe and um, knew when to ramp it up and when to ease off. And there was a family dynamic there too. So he obviously knew me.
Yeah.
So probably was making sure that I was getting what I needed, whether that was on any given day, getting my butt whooped or handing out the whooping. So
Yeah. I think fifth place your sophomore year. I mean, that's really good.
yeah, yeah, both good teams. Really, the freshman year when we finished 10th, probably shoulda, woulda, coulda. Dropped a few matches we probably shouldn't have, but yeah, I mean both pretty solid showings for us.
Yeah. I mean, especially, 1A has, I mean, especially at that time was pretty deep. Like it was pretty competitive. I'm not saying it's not anymore, but there was a handful of teams at that time that were just jockeying for position. It seemed I think Don Bosco was still kind of the top dog,
Yeah,
but I don't think it was as certain. It didn't feel like that anyway. Um, at times, you know.
yeah, I know now. I was looking at that. I don't really coach anymore. I'm more of a fan than anything, but I think the last
Yeah.
1A rankings I saw Don Bosco maybe had 7 of the 14 weights ranked number one. So
Yeah.
they're a powerhouse. And they were,
Yeah.
yeah, 20 years ago they've been that way for a long time.
Yeah. Because I think they placed out to four, right? Did they do four trophies, or was it just three? I forget. I get it
I
confused. I think the
was,
NCAA places out like they got trophies for the top four, but maybe high school's only
yeah,
just three.
I was thinking 3, but I could be wrong on that.
So yeah, you guys were right there in terms of potentially getting a trophy. I mean,
Yeah.
that's had you guys had that success as a team really before?
Uh, Highland had some good years. Probably mid to late 90s. I'd have to go back and see. I know they had a state medal one of those years. And I think they won a medal or won a team trophy when the West Twins were down there one of those years. And I'm pretty sure they did it off like the backs of the two twins and then maybe Travis Cole. So there were like 3 guys that were all in the state finals that type of trip, and they
Yeah.
might have got like third place or something. So unfortunately, we've just, and even now, I follow the program a little bit. I know they struggle with depth. So, but to me, it's always been a program that usually has a few high quality guys that are going to go to the state tournament place. So,
Yeah, it seems like a proud wrestling community, like you're graduating 40 kids, so you're a pretty small school, but my gosh, it just seems like wrestling is ingrained in that community. Like it's what you do kind of like.
yeah, yeah,
So,
I felt that way. I mean,
yeah.
I think that's probably a lot of rural Iowa, at least in my experience. So probably a lot of similarities there.
Yeah. Um, your sophomore year, you were part of that team. You were a big part of that team. That's when you got third place. Um, was it a disappointing third? I hate to use that as like, disappointing because third is still a great accomplishment, but as far as you were concerned, I mean, after your getting fifth as a freshman, you probably had your eyes set on a state title at that point.
Yeah, I had a good year. It's easier to look back now, I think, and um, actually, I think you had Mark Kist on your podcast, if I
Yeah.
remember right. But
Yep.
he won my bracket that year, and um, he actually didn't beat me at the state tournament. I dropped a match in the semifinals to someone who I'd actually beaten twice at the state tournament my freshman year. So that stung.
Wow.
It was an
Yeah.
overtime match in the semifinals. So um, I don't know that I could have beaten Kist in the finals, but yeah, I mean that was the goal my sophomore year was to go in and win a state title. That was what I wanted to do. So came up short. I no excuses that year. Was I was healthy, had a great year, just didn't get it done.
Yeah. What about your junior year? Like because that was the year you placed sixth. I mean, that was your worst showing at state. And at that point,
Yeah,
you're probably thinking like, okay, this is my year, right? And then when you come up
yeah,
short, and not only short, but like, I mean, my gosh, am I getting worse? Like, did you get flooded with those type of emotions and thoughts? Like, my gosh, am I getting worse? I'm getting sixth at state. It's the worst I've
yeah,
ever done. Like, what's going on?
yeah. That was my junior year was in high school. The year that I cut the most weight. Probably cut an unhealthy amount of weight that year. Still had a solid year. Um, was wrestling. I think it was at sectionals, and I actually broke my hand at the sectional tournament. Um, was able to win sectionals, but then went to districts and lost at districts. Still qualified and went to state, but had a broken hand. I remember
Wow.
it was one of those things. It's like, well, yeah, you can compete with a broken hand, and it was, I mean, it was painful, but it wasn't really the pain that held you back. It was, I couldn't really grab anything.
Yeah.
So I remember we went up to the University of Iowa, and the doctor we saw was Misnick, who wrestled for Gable. And it was kind of funny. He was, they do x-rays and he's coming and talking to you, and he kind of knew what was going on. And it's like, well, you know, the doctor and me, I should tell you, like, look, you need to cast this thing and you can't compete for 6 or 8 weeks. But I know districts is this week, and I know you're not going to do that. So we can send you across the hall to get like a soft cast, basically, that you could tape up and compete with. So, it was bad timing. And I was incredibly fortunate throughout all my wrestling to never really deal with um, many injuries at all, especially any serious ones. It was bad timing of it. It was unfortunate. It made the weight cut tough, and then it made also competing and winning matches, how I wrestled them, tough. So yeah, it was a tough couple of weeks dealing with that. And then I think I lost. I don't know if it was in those couple of weeks, 4 or 5 matches, which was probably more than I'd lost the couple of years before. So it was, yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was not a fun period of time for me.
Wow. Well, that kind of explains it a little bit. I mean, were you wrestling? So after you broke your hand, were you wrestling like um those weeks leading up to state and like that week of districts, that week of state? Were you on the mat or were you like conditioning and just like running and stuff?
It was, I mean, I can't remember to for 100% certainty, but if I was on the mat, it was incredibly controlled.
Yeah.
I can remember a lot of airdyne, a lot of jogging, a lot of sweats, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it didn't help me out much. That, like I said, that was a year where it was a pretty big pull to make 119. So um, yeah, it was tough. It was unfortunate, but it's wrestling, right? And you get up to that tournament, and people are dealing with a number of things. So
Why did you make the cut to 119? Like, what was the thought process behind that in the first place?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I don't know if there was anything specific. I got 103 and then I got 112. We were kind of going up a weight class every year. I can't tell you if there was someone at 125 that I saw that I didn't think I could beat, or if I looked at 119 and thought I could win it. That was where I was at.
119 was kind of loaded. I mean, I mean, it's kind of, I'm looking at, so you had Kendall Witt in the first round, which, so you got beat at districts.
Yeah.
Who beat you at districts?
Uh, Gio Lamelli, who's a good friend of mine now, actually. So he was in,
Oh, from Wapello.
yeah. So we'd wrestled a number of times, and he was actually who I was wrestling at sectionals when I got injured, and the injury was, I don't even know how it happened, to be honest with you. I think it was a fluke thing. But yeah, it happened at sectionals, and then he had beat me at districts.
Dang. Yeah, so you had Kendall Witt and then Colton Wagner. Jace Thompson was in this bracket. Jeff Onimus. I mean, Travis Taylor, Greg Ryder, Jake Demon. I mean, this was loaded.
Yeah,
So if you were trying to dodge somebody, I don't know who you're trying to dodge because you're wrestling a bunch of hammers there. So
sure.
wow.
Yeah, but that's the state tournament, right? No, regardless of which class you're in, I think you're gonna find, a list of names like that of guys that are pretty dang tough.
Yeah. Um, well that had to be a bummer, when you break your hand. I mean, did you have any like I mean, you didn't, sounds like you didn't have any time to kind of pout about it or feel sorry for yourself because you had districts. But I mean, that can be a big shock to your system, especially if you had never been hurt before. And now you have a broken hand. It's not like you have a little minor injury. It's a broken hand.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess the way I processed it was, well, this is gonna change, my routine. This is gonna change how I make weight. Um, I wasn't too concerned. I probably gave myself too much credit for how I might be able to compete with it.
Mhm.
I was someone who I wasn't overly offensive. Um, I could hand fight real well. Could get out from bottom and could ride. And when you can't control wrist, when you can't fight hands, when you can't hand fight
Right.
like you're used to, it kind of changes things. And unfortunately I was kind of learning that on the fly. So at the district
Yeah.
and state tournament. So, but yeah, bad timing there. But it's one of those things you just gotta work through it.
Yeah. So I mean, honestly, to come out in fifth place, just or in sixth place with
Yeah.
the names I just listed, I mean that now with the information I have, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're like,
Uh,
I guess I don't know. I mean, it.
Yeah.
I guess to me, like I've had a broken hand before, so I had I broke my knuckle or whatever right in here in my right
Okay.
hand. So like not being able to grab anything, and I had a cast. Okay, I got casted because I must be a weenie, but you know, not being like it's really useless,
Yeah.
So I mean, it's there, but you weren't probably using it a whole lot,
Yep.
so you're
Yeah, it
wrestling with
was
one hand.
pretty much. I mean, you could use it to, smack someone around a little bit, but you weren't going to grab onto them and, hold on too tight. That was for sure. So,
Yeah. So then you heal up, and then like you must have like just been coming back. Did you just have did you just have a fire lit under you your senior year? Because like, dude, this is it. I mean, now 3 years have gone. I haven't won a state title. Um, Gosh, this has to be the year, right? I mean, were you just like a
yeah.
man on a mission or what?
Yeah, that was the mindset. your senior year. I was cutting a lot of weight, like I said, my junior year, so decided to jump a weight class. Really two weight classes, go up to 130. Um, Had a real good off season. I never really did a ton of freestyle wrestling. And the most I probably did was maybe after my sophomore and then after my senior year. But my junior year, just because I was injured, I was kind of recovering from that a little bit. So
Hmm.
didn't do a ton that year, but got healthy, got strong. Played football that fall, put on a
Nice.
little bit of size, and yeah, we were gunning for the top of the podium that last year too. So
Yeah. What was that like then when you lost in the quarters to Delagardelle?
that was, I mean, it was tough. Like I said, it's probably easy to look back and reflect now. I was someone who didn't light up the scoreboard. I wrestled a lot of controlled matches, and he came from a great program, was well coached, probably had a pretty good strategy going into it. I think I'd wrestled him maybe the year before, and it was a tight match. We were in the same tournament that year, at Hudson, but he lost to Cody Johnston, who ended up winning that weight. So I,
Mhm.
I wrestled Cody Johnston and not Del Gardell. So I don't think we had wrestled that year, but um, I can't even really remember how the match went. I remembered that it was tight, and that I, lost a close one. So it stung. I mean,
Yeah.
at the state tournament they all hurt, but I that one just, you know when you don't have something to fall back on, like, well, I got next year, I'm going to come back and do
Right.
it. That one, yeah, that one stung for sure.
Yeah. How did you bounce back though then and not only get third, but then you beat him for third. So I mean that had to be a little nice consolation prize.
Yeah, yeah, I guess. I mean, I was not in a good spot, as most probably wouldn't be in that situation. I think I don't even know if, because back then it seems like anymore they've spread the tournament out, and now if you lose you get to wait till maybe the next morning that to have to wrestle back.
Right.
That was one I do remember. It was like back to back. So um, I'd lost. I think I was pouting, upset about it, and probably wasn't in the right frame of mind when I had to come and wrestle back. I can't even remember the wrestle back match, but probably was not at all prepared. And fortunately went out and was able to win that one and get into the next day, which I think that allowed me to regroup a little bit. And that I'd come back and gotten third before, right? So, and really, once you're in that consolation bracket, it's at some point you just got to move on and go get right. It's cliche, but go get the next best thing, right? It's like
Yeah.
all you can go do is win the matches you have in front of you. So that became the focus.
Yeah, and I know that like that's easier said than done though, especially like you said. I mean, you had nothing else. Like this was it. And now it's gone. Your high school career, there's no state title. I mean, to come to terms with that while wrestling at the state tournament on the backside where you're just getting, hammer after hammer, you're just just seems like it never ends. Um, I mean, to be able to regroup and get third, like, I don't know, I think there's a lot of pride in that.
Yeah, I mean, I've always liked, when I go to the state tournament and watch. I love that morning round when it's like the consi semis and the placement matches, just
Yeah.
because it's a dogfight. And it seems to me like guys in that round sometimes will open up a little bit more. Like maybe you've
Yeah.
got a little bit less to lose. Maybe you're a little bit ticked off from what happened the night before.
Yeah.
And whether it's a state tournament or the NCAA tournament, whichever level, I feel like watching those rounds, or even competing in those rounds, can be a little fun just to let it fly.
Yeah. And at that point, were you thinking about wrestling in college or had you committed to Co? Like, where were you at, like thinking next level wise at that point?
Y- Yeah, at that point, I was pretty set on, yes, wrestling in college, favoring Co, but still undecided. I was getting recruited by just a few of the local Division III schools, and actually Grandview was at the time just kind of kicking things off, getting things
Right.
started. So they were one as well. So I knew that I wanted to compete in college. I'd known just that Division I probably wasn't going to be the right path for me. So um, Co was the favorite. At some point in my high school career, we started going up to Cedar Hawk, which was run out of the Co wrestling room.
Hmm.
There were a number of Southeastern Iowa guys that had gone to Co. I was familiar with some of them. I mentioned my cousin, who was my assistant coach in high school, had graduated from Co. So um, there were a lot of good things there. And then really, what sold it for me was right after my senior year, went up to the Division III national tournament. Was in Cedar Rapids, so got to go watch, and Co put three in the national finals that year. And Tyler Burkle won a national championship. Coach O won Coach of the Year, and Coach Hinchberger won Assistant of the Year. So it was like this makes things pretty easy. It's like
Yeah.
not only do I feel comfortable with this program, these coaches, and everything else, you can go there and win. So I mean
Yeah.
that was very apparent to me when I watched that tournament. So
I'm trying to think 2008. That wasn't like Nick LeClaire, was it? Was he there at that point or had he graduated by then?
no, it was Nick graduated the same year that I did. I think Nick was a year older, but maybe had gone to Iowa and redshirted. So then, like eligibility wise, we graduated from Co at the same time. I think that's right.
Oh, wow. Geez, why did I think he was that old? Because Chris is like your age too, right?
Chris is a grade below me.
Okay, got it.
Um, Dan's a little older. Um,
Yeah, yep. Huh.
but yeah, so it was that year in 2008. It was Clayton Rush was in the finals. Tyler Burke was in the finals, and then Tyler Gents was also in the finals.
Gotcha.
I
Okay, so
think
yeah.
they had another All American. Might have been Niles Mercer, maybe.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty easy recruiting tool when you go and one, it's in your hometown. Well, not your hometown, but it's in your area. Two,
Yep.
the team in your area, Co, is having good success, national title, coach of the year. Like it probably made the decision a lot easier for you.
Yeah, it was like I said, I was leaning that way already just because I was familiar. I really liked Coach O. He had come watch me compete a few times.
Yeah.
I understood how the philosophy, which it's part of the Gable tree, right? O wrestled for
Yeah.
Gable. My
Yeah.
high school coach wrestled for O, so it was like the way that we were running practices weren't that different from how they ran practices and their philosophy around the sport and all of that stuff. So yeah, like I said, I was leaning there. I knew I wanted to wrestle. I was leaning towards Co. Knew some people there, and then the icing on the cake was going up there to the national tournament and seeing the success that they had that year. Which to that point, that was, yeah, maybe we've had some better years. Co has had some better years since then, but to that point, that was the best year in program history. I think safe to say.
Yeah. Yeah. And while you were there, the team was consistently, I mean, top five, which is,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, not unheard of, but to that point, maybe a little bit. Um, but while you were there, you know, she almost quit while you were there, right? Was that like, I thought I read like your sophomore year, you were like done.
yeah. I mean, it was. I wouldn't say that I almost quit. I mean, you have thoughts, right? It's like you're
Yeah.
growing up, and it's hard to be a backup in college. You go through all that stuff. And for me, I was really in that role for 3 years. So
Yeah.
um, I came in as a freshman and I was at 133 pounds and Brandon Ball was a starter there and he whooped me that year. We had a wrestle off. I think it was like a 4-0 match and he had like 5 minutes of riding time type of match. So um, he was a year ahead of me. He finished fourth that year at nationals and in my opinion was probably the best guy in the country that year. He had wins over the three guys that finished ahead of him in the tournament. So um, I think that was the year Coe used to wrestle the University of Iowa early in the season. Um, and we always got our butts handed to us, but there was always fun matches that were pretty
Yeah.
competitive. One year he wrestled Dan Dennis. It may have been that year, and it was like a 9-7 match. So gives you an idea of, I mean, any match can go any different ways, but he was very, very good. So I was my freshman year, cutting a lot of weight and not getting into the lineup with him
Mm.
there. So
Yeah. So how did you even get to that point then of, because this is a sport you've been doing and a sport that you love, and this is why I'm in college. And now you're at to the point where like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. How did you even get to that point? Was it just being a backup and, basically doing everything a starter's doing, but just not running out there and wrestling?
yeah, that year at 133 pounds as a backup, I was cutting a lot of weight and you're not competing in duels. So it's like every other weekend you're going to an open type thing. So your
Yeah.
weight is just going up and down and up and down. And it's, every time you're making weight, it's just a pull to try to make it. And then you're going and I wasn't having the success that I wanted to. So after that year, after that season, I decided to go up to 141 pounds. And, my sophomore year, I wasn't getting in a lot of trouble or anything like that. I was just kind of in between doing everything that I needed to as an athlete and as a wrestler to put myself in a position to do what I wanted to do,
Mhm.
which um, being a wrestler at Co during that time, that the goal was national championships. That was what we talked about, and that's what our coaching staff instilled in us. So um, I was caught between doing some of it and then also having maybe a little bit too much of a social life, and that's kind of what my results were at that point. So um, I was a backup my sophomore year. It was kind of some of the same. My junior year, I'd say I kind of started turning it around. I was still a backup behind Chris Leclerc at 141, but put together a nice year that year. I couldn't tell you what my record was, but I think I maybe only lost a couple of matches that year and won quite a few matches. So that year it was. And the other thing that helped me out that year was some of the guys that I competed against, some of them I beat were starting to have success,
Mm.
at the national tournament at the end of the year, that type of stuff. So, and that's part of why I chose Co, right? It was tough to make the lineup. We had a heck of a team. So,
Yeah.
on the other edge of that sword, I guess you've got a pretty good idea of where you stand without competing a lot of varsity.
Mhm.
Not saying that what happens in the wrestling room translates into matches because it doesn't, but
Yeah.
you've got quite a number of guys within your own program that you compete against to get a sense of just exactly where you are. So that kind of always helped me out behind the scenes.
Yeah. How did you then pull yourself out of that spot that you were in of, you know, contemplating your role in the sport and find almost like re-energize yourself, get your second wind of, okay, yep, I'm here to do this. I love this sport. How did you pull yourself out and get into that mindset?
Yeah, I think for me, after my junior year, it was a couple things. Like I said, I some guys that I'd beaten were starting to have success, and for me, it was like maybe a little bit of a aha moment. It was like, all right, like I could do that, but also like this is it. So like there is no more like, you don't
Yeah.
get another year after this next year. So um, having that certainly helped. And then we had a heck of a year, heck of a team my senior year too. So I knew there was an opportunity for me. I felt like I always competed a little better when I cut some weight.
Funny how that
There's
works.
there's pros and cons, and I know weight cutting that you can overdo it, and I have
Sure.
overdone it.
Sure.
And I was probably pretty close to overdoing it my senior year, to be honest with you.
I was going to ask how much that cut was
Uh, I
and
mean,
why you did it. Was it to crack the lineup? Like this was the only chance I could have because was Chris Leclerc still there, right?
yeah, he was there. I was cutting from probably 160, somewhere between 160, 160, probably not 165, but
Yeah.
162 pounds. So it was a big pull. I remember I turned 21 that summer and we celebrated. And then
Of
the
course.
second half of July, I started my weight cut to get down
Wow, really?
for, so it was a long thing. I talked to Coach O about it, about, he knew that I was planning on coming down prior to the summer. So it was um, in the cards for a long time after my junior season. So, and yeah, I would say yes to make the lineup, but to me, back to that program at that time and what the expectation was and what we were training for, it was really to go win a national title was the goal. And but to your point, in order to do that, you've got to make the lineup. So that was step
Mm.
one.
Yeah.
But for me, back to the weight cutting, it was tough, but um, it helped me stay disciplined. I
True.
couldn't
Yeah.
I couldn't skip any days. I couldn't skip any mornings. It was regimented. I had to follow routine. When things got tough, I was doing a little extra that whole season, and I think that helped help me pull through some of those tight matches.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm trying to think back to that team. Was that like Jimmy Gatto, yourself, maybe? I don't know if Jimmy was the starter yet. Um, Chris
Yeah,
Leclerc, Dimitri Boyer on that team. Like, is that kind of the team that was there?
yeah. Boyer hadn't cracked the lineup yet. Dale Hanley was
Yeah, Dale Haney. Yep.
157.
Okay. Al Burnett guy, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
Dale's tough. Mark
Yeah.
Carey, he was a Missouri guy. He was 149. Nick Leclerc was 165. Let's see, Scott King was 174. Um, Ethan Ball was 184. We had a freshman, Donnie Horner, who I don't think he qualified that year. I think he was 197, but he ended up being an All American once or twice for the Cohawks. And then
Wow.
Alex Burkle was our heavyweight that year. So yeah, we had a good team. It was a lot of
Yeah.
fun. Back to your question when we kick this off. That's we get the guys together. It's always a fun argument on which class was better. So would the 2012 team beat the 2014 team or the
Yeah.
2010 team? It's so
Well, of course, because you're on that team. So of course, like you were the starter. So yeah, your team's gonna win, you know?
yeah. Yeah, I've got an opinion.
Yeah. 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 And like, but it's also cool just to think back to those years in co-wrestling history, like just reminisce about just how tough those teams were. And like I still think they have some pretty solid teams. Um, but those were the teams I remember. Those were the teams I grew up or
Sure.
I didn't grow up. I was growing up with them. Like those were the teams that stick out in my mind. Like when you said Chris Leclerc, Nick Leclerc, and Alex Burkle and Tyler Burkle and Clayton Rush and all those guys, I was like,
Yeah.
damn, yeah, they had it going
Yeah,
on.
I think my senior year, I could be wrong, but I think only Nick Leclerc and Alex Burkle were the only two of our starters that had won a state title in high school.
Isn't
You
that?
you had a it was kind of Coach O's, I feel like his recruiting profile, right? You had smaller school kids, maybe played multiple sports, maybe didn't achieve what they'd set out to achieve in high school.
Yeah.
but there were a lot of probably similarities across that group that made us work so well together and have a pretty tight bond, still do today. So yeah, we had a lot of fun. It was a good group.
Yeah, and you're all sort of local. LeClaire's from Linmar, Gatto from Western Dubuque, um, Burkle from Northland. Did I say Linmar? I meant
Yeah,
Northland. Oh
Northland.
gosh.
I knew what
Oh
you meant.
no, Northland. Yeah. Um, yourself, like you're all probably familiar and cross paths on the circuit growing up, and now you're teammates. So that had to be kind of a cool and unique group of guys also to be around.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That was really the environment that maybe I got a little bit of in high school, but college it just took it to a different level to have a room full of guys like that. So
Yeah. And you kind of caught fire that year, which is awesome. This is like the climax of the story right here. This is what I was waiting for, because you didn't crack the lineup until then. And here you are, you enter, you first off, you punch your ticket to nationals, which I mean, I'm sure that was the goal all along, but to finally crack the lineup and to finally go to nationals as a participant and not a fan, like what was that like when you solidified your spot at nationals?
yeah, it was more of a relief than anything, right? It was
Yeah.
like this feels good, but it's on to the next thing. It's back to you can't try to win a national title if you're not the varsity guy. You got to take care of the business at hand first before you're down the road. But yeah, it was big. Like I said, we had a great team. It was an exciting time.
Yeah.
Those postseason tournaments, just in general, can be pretty tense because if
Yeah.
you lose, I mean that's kind of it. So and it
Yeah.
that happens. That's wrestling. That's part of what makes it such a great sport. You never quite know what might happen. So yeah, I was prepared. Hadn't competed at the conference tournament before, so my first time going through that.
Yeah.
Co-hosted it, which maybe that helped. But yeah, I remember it was a good bracket. I remember I had a real close match with Teague Snyder. Must have been in the semifinals of the conference tournament, and we kind of gotten in a position and slapped a cradle on him and pinned him. And
Heck yeah.
Clayton, I know you had Clayton on the podcast. I think he's got a story because he was coaching that year. I think
Yep. Yep.
Jimmy Gatto um, had won his semifinal match on the mat next, and then they got both kind of happened in a row. And I don't know if either Jimmy or I were a sure thing. So I think they were pretty pumped when those happened within probably a few seconds of each other.
Yeah. No, his story that he told me was that you said that you were going to get the 7 seed. You were going to make it, you were going to beat this guy. I think like you basically uh called your tournament in a sense. Like you were going to get the 7 seed, you were going to beat this guy who was going to be the 2 seed, and then you were going to beat this guy who was going to be the 3 seed, and you were going to be in the national finals. I think if I remember right, that's what he said.
Yeah, yeah, it was something like that. I had kind of looked. Yeah, the national bracket it was pretty tough. It was very tough.
Yeah.
Particularly the path was not ideal. But I do remember Clayton and I we were roommates his junior year. So when he won his first title,
Hmm.
and
Let's see
again,
here. You were his roommate. He won his first national title. I wonder if there's a connection there. I don't know.
right, yeah, no, again though, being fortunate, you talk about someone who leaves or who left very little to chance in his competing days, and probably a lot of similarities in how he coaches, but um, I benefited a ton from him. But I do remember a conversation we had around seating, and he thought maybe I'd get the six. I had a pretty good idea who might be the 2 seed. We had some common opponents that I'd seen, and I was like, that might not be bad. And I knew who was going to be the 3 seed too, and I'd wrestled him head to head, and he beat me earlier in the year. So at that point you kind of know, but in Division III wrestling, you also don't get to compete against everyone either, especially
Yeah.
some of the schools out east. So sometimes you're just going off of common opponents. So yeah, I think I did say that I might prefer to be the 7th seed because if I remember right, I don't know how the seating meeting worked exactly, but I think I remember him telling me that maybe they could have got me the 6, but they just let me take the 7 since that's what I told them I wanted. So
Yeah, and like the great part of this story is like you know, you wait, and I got all these thoughts in my head, so let me just try to slow down here. But you get to the national tournament, and like you said, you wrestled Corey Brown was the 2 seed from Teal. You beat him 5-4. And then you wrestle Adam Sheely, UW
yeah,
Lacrosse. UW Lacrosse was hosting that year, and he was a returning national champ at 141.
yeah.
And you
I
beat him
think
in like.
I think he may have been 141 champ the next year,
Oh, he won it the next year at 141? Okay. Well, he was
or
a national
maybe
champ at 141, like,
yeah.
and you took him
He
out.
was he was tough. And really um the first round match with Dalton Bullard from Elmhurst was um we had a few teammates crossed over the river, came from Illinois, right? So a
Yeah,
buddy of
sure.
mine after the tournament, he's like telling me about Dalton, about how great of a wrestler he was in high school. He's like, I didn't want to say anything because I'm like, man, that guy's pretty tough. I think he was a 4-time state finalist in Illinois. So he was a stud in high school, and then he
Yeah.
also, I think, All American the next year. I think he went to Nebraska maybe to start his collegiate career, and then ended up back at Elmhurst. So that was the first round matchup. And he came back and took third. So I
Oh,
beat him.
seriously?
Yeah, he rattled off. I don't know if it was 5 or 6
Wow.
wins to come back and take third in that bracket. So that was a match. I just remember really any tournament. I feel like the first one is good to get behind you, but
Sure.
I remember coming off the mat. And would always encourage us to do a cool down. And I just remember being so dang tired and,
Mm.
my forearms and everything was just so
Yeah.
dang tired. And I'm like, man, if that's as easy as it's going to get, this isn't going to be much fun. But yeah, he was incredibly tough. And then, yeah, I got Corey Brown, who I think he was a 4-time All-American in the quarterfinals. And that was a dogfight too. Fortunately, I think I tilted him in the second or third period, which ended up being the difference there. And that one to win in the quarterfinals was um, for me probably even more notable than the semis, just because it guarantees you All American status, which at the
Yeah.
time was a big thing. So yeah,
Yeah. And then, then you go in the semis and yeah, there probably is a little sense of relief there because you're an All-American, but job's not finished. Like you said, you went to Coe College to win a national title. And
yeah.
man, to punch your ticket after all you'd been through, waiting and cutting weight now and everything, you find yourself in the national finals. I mean, that just had to be. And I'm also thinking from a teammate's perspective, when you watch somebody put their blood, sweat, and tears into something and they're just not quite the starter or they're not quite getting it done, and to witness them finally, you know, reap the fruits of the labor. I mean, it's just all awesome. It's just awesome.
Yeah, I think really that whole season, but particularly that postseason being the first time through that, probably had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. Maybe felt like I had something to prove.
Sure.
That semifinals match, Sheely, he was incredibly tough. To your point, won a national title at 141. He had beat me in December, so I was familiar with them. It was also a tight match. I think I'd gotten some near fall. He maybe had a takedown, went into overtime, ride outs, and eventually I got away and was able to ride him a couple of times was the difference there. So yeah, that was it was great to win that match, right? At that point you feel a little bit like you're maybe playing with house money. It's like let's just
A little bit,
try to
yeah.
try to keep going, right? So, but again, back to the co-wrestling program at the time, it was, um, I'd watched my teammates do that and win that match in those situations, guys that I practice with each and every day. So, I don't want it to sound cliche, like it's like that's the standard, that's the expectation, but that was what we talked about, and that was,
Sure.
when things got tough, that was the things that you envisioned. So, um, you put in a lot of work to get to that point, so you're just trying to, you know, pay it off.
Yeah. Um, I know the finals didn't go your way, but I mean, was it still just a pretty awesome experience to make it to the national finals, to finally showcase your talents on the big stage and also show yourself that like, hey, I am as good as I think I am, like I am a good wrestler and I'm doing this for a reason. Like I know, like I said, coming up short had to sting, but was there some positives also out of that experience?
Yeah, it it was a great time, a great experience. It didn't end the way that I wanted it to. We had a great team that year. Wartburg, as always, had an incredible team. They ran away with the team title that year, and it was really us and Augsburg neck and neck for that second place spot. And unfortunately, Alex Burkle blew his knee out
Oh,
in the conference finals that year against, I think it was Fank from Wartburg, who he had beaten a few times that year, and Fank ended up finishing fourth. So, it's wrestling. You can't say, well, we would have finished at least fourth, but
right.
pretty confidently say Alex Burkle would have scored us a few points at the national tournament that year,
Yeah.
which would have propped you into second, which you're still not winning at that point. But there was a lot of pride in at that point. We were on a pretty good run and um, always finishing within, that pecking order, not really first or second, but really third, fourth, fifth. I think all 4 years I was there. So um, there were a lot of guys after I'd won my semifinals match, just watching them come back. I think we had at least one or two come back and get third, a couple guys get fifth. So watching them come back and win was good. And then to go through that finals experience, Nick LeClaire, my teammate, was also in the finals that year. To go through it together was good. Seth Ecker, my opponent in the finals. I think he'd won it the year before at
Yeah.
133 pounds. He was at least a two-timer. I think at least a three-time All-American. Heck of a wrestler. That's one. I feel like there's two different losses in wrestling. One, it's like, man, I should have won that match. It's so
Yeah.
frustrating. My finals match, in hindsight, I look back on it, and that's a match that maybe I win 1 out of 10 times if I'm lucky. He
Yeah.
was just at that point still um, better, a little bit better than I was, which stinks, right? It's
Right.
like you want to win every match, but at least for me, I could probably stomach losing a match like that a little bit better than one that you feel like you let slip away. So, um, it was tough to go out on a loss. It was kind of mixed emotions, right? It was a
Sure.
great
Sure.
season, great to get to the end, and then the end doesn't go the way you want. But um, that's kind of what it is. That's how wrestling goes sometimes.
Yeah. When you look over your career, and unfortunately never getting quite what you set out to get, that state title, that national title, I'm sure it stings, but do you look at it in a positive light? Like, man, I left it all out on the table. I did everything I could. I came up short, sure, but you know what? I had a heck of a career, man, and I am proud of what I accomplished. Like, do you have that sense of feeling too?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, for me, like I said, I started as a sore loser and still maybe am a little bit of a sore loser. So the losses stick with you.
Sure, sure.
But I mean, you don't dwell on it, right? It's a very, very small part of my life, right? But I will say that I wouldn't change much of it because it really anything with wrestling, it shapes you, good or bad. It can really show you the way. So some of the best friends I have, I made through wrestling. Some of the hard work, the persevering, all of that stuff you learn through a sport like wrestling that I think is tough to learn other ways. So yeah,
Yeah.
you
Are
don't
you
forget the losses, but you don't
sure?
dwell on them.
Yeah. Do you are you involved in any way in the sport? Since you live in Cedar Rapids, I hear there's a good high school team not too far away with a pretty good coach, that
Yeah.
you might be able to help out with. Obviously
Ye-
talk about Alburnett. So
Yeah. So we talked about Colorado. When I first was out there after Co, I was coaching at Regis Jesuit Catholic School over in Aurora. Great school, had a lot of fun with it. Actually, so you're in Colorado Springs.
yep.
So funny story. My first year out there, we had a guy, a junior, who'd won a state title at 195 pounds. Grant Neal was his name. Heck of a wrestler, heck of a football
Mhm.
player, really great athlete, great kid. Um, and was having a ton of fun with it. And he's coming back to repeat. Decided to move up to 220. And at that time, I was following wrestling pretty closely, and we caught wind of Kyle Snyder moving from Maryland into Colorado Springs to compete at the Olympic Training Center. And at the time, some of those athletes they would enroll at Coronado High School and compete for Coronado. And
Yeah.
we were like, "Gosh, don't do that! Don't do that!" Fortunately, he did not, and Grant won his second state title. But anyway, was coaching at Regis Jesuit, had a lot of fun with it. Right about the time we moved back, we had Emery, our oldest daughter. Um, so I had 2018 off from coaching, and then 2019 I was coaching at Prairie until probably like 23. Last couple of years I've been pretty out of it. Just growing family, growing work
Yeah,
responsibilities. My wife's busy, so it's tough. But I pop in the Prairie room every once in a while and know the coaching staff pretty well over there. So and that's also a very storied program as well.
for
So
sure. Yeah. And that's Kane Thompson, correct? He's the head coach over there.
so Kane was for a number of years. It's Derek Ball now.
Oh, okay.
Kane
Gotcha.
stepped down maybe 3 years ago,
Oh,
and Kane
really? Geez, where
actually,
have I been?
well, Colorado.
Yes.
No, Kane stepped down. Kane actually, he's an assistant at Co now, so
Oh,
he's
no
helping out
kidding.
at Co now. Yeah, so
Oh, good for him. Yeah, when I was going up through high school, he was the coach at Alburnett.
helping that.
I forget if I forget when he started there, but he was there, definitely when I was there, and I remember him and the Hallblum and Schlistas and all them. So, but but yeah, do you go into the Alburnett room? Like, have you hit up Clayton and been like, hey, you got anybody for me or
No, he
no?
doesn't invite me in. He probably knows I'd whoop him like I used to in college, but
Yeah,
no, just kidding.
probably. No, yeah, that's probably right. And until he says different, that's the story we're going with. So,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. No, I've not been over there, but I follow them closely. I root for them.
yeah,
It's kind of funny. Albernette competes against Eddyville. First round of state duels. Dimitri Boyer is the coach at Eddyville. So two of my teammates.
yeah.
I was at the Eddyville golf. They had to do a fundraiser. They had a golf tournament this summer. So I made it to Eddyville's, but not Albernette's. So um,
Wow.
I like to
Okay.
spur
Okay.
those two. So we were at the co-wrestling golf outing actually this summer, and Boyer was talking some smack to Clayton. So I'm curious to see what happens in that duel. So
That's
should be a fun
funny.
one.
Yeah. And Boyer's been there just a couple years. I feel like he just got the job not too long ago.
Yeah, it's probably been I time flies anymore, but
Right.
probably 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember him too. Yeah. That's why this is fun. That's why I like doing this, like you're naming off guys that I'm like, yeah, I remember watching those guys grow up. I grew up the same time, I'm 34, so I'm just a couple
Yep.
years younger than you. Like that was my time, so it's fun to kind of just hear stories and see how everyone did and how they did it and what they're doing now. So, yeah, it's fun. But
Yeah.
Do you go to Highland Riverside at all? I mean, I feel bad I didn't ask if you go to their practices. I mean, that's where you're from. So do you pop in
I
there?
I I don't. I just with my work schedule, I have a hard time making it really to any afternoon practices.
Yeah.
But like I said, know the head coach very well. Know a lot of the wrestlers pretty well, so I root for
Yeah.
them as well. I've got a couple of nephews that wrestle in high school. One wrestles for Wapello, one wrestles for Columbus Junction. So I'm hoping we can get a ticket or two punched for the state
There
tournament.
you
We'll try to
go.
get down there, and it's always fun to get back there. So
Yeah. Does your dad still help out with the
no,
kids program or no? No? Okay.
no, he doesn't.
Nah.
No.
But now once you left, he was like, all right, pass the torch pretty much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
had to move on. So
Yeah. Is there any chance in the future that that might be in the cards for you, or it's too early to
uh,
tell?
back into coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I would love to do it now if
Yeah.
I had the time. We've got a son who's 3.5, so we'll see.
Yeah.
I've always joked that life would probably be a lot easier if he decides not to wrestle. So if he wants to do it, great. If he doesn't want to do it, that's great too.
Yeah.
But if he does, it's hard to imagine a scenario where I wouldn't be involved some point. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see.
Um,
It's fun though. I tell you what, it's hard to. I felt like when I was in it, um, and even as personal things were ramping up and getting busy, and it was getting harder and harder to do it. It was like feels like there's never a good time to step back, right? It's like, well, I'm
right.
going to leave when these guys graduate, and then there's like more that are coming. You're like, well, I'm going to leave when they get in. Yeah, it's once you get ingrained in a program, it can be hard to step out.
Yeah. Yeah. Last question for you. What are you up to now? So you're in Cedar Rapids. What are you doing?
Yeah, so I work at True North Companies. We're a privately held independent insurance agency, headquartered out of Cedar Rapids. I'm on our finance department, so work under our CFO. There's probably somewhere between 30 to 40,000 independent agencies across the United States. In terms of revenue, True North is somewhere between 30 to 40. So
Wow.
it's a large agency.
Yeah.
Across everything, probably in the ballpark of 700 colleagues working
Wow.
at True North companies. So um, it's fun, it keeps me busy. In a lot of ways, like I said, we're privately held, so we, in a lot of ways, are the underdog. We don't have Wall Street money. We're
Right.
not publicly traded. Some of that stuff, who we go up and
Mhm.
compete against. So that takes me back to my roots a little bit, being a small town class
Yeah.
1A kid. So
Yeah.
I align with all of that. So no, it's good. Great place to work. Like I said, they keep me plenty busy. And my wife, she's a nurse practitioner at Physicians Clinic of Iowa here in Cedar Rapids as well. So she works in hematology oncology. So also very busy, and
Yeah.
the three kids keep us busy too.
Is that what you went to school for? Like finance or something like that?
Yeah, I did business admin, and
Okay.
then later on took a few more accounting classes as well. So I have a degree in accounting too. So
Nice.
I'm a number cruncher, spreadsheet
Nice.
guy. So
Nice.
yeah,
So like if I wanted you to do my taxes, like is that something that you guys do or no?
I don't do tax. No, we don't do
No
taxes.
taxes, okay.
We have an external CPA that we work with. So
Gotcha.
yeah, tax is a different animal.
Yeah,
It's like if you're in it, you know it, and if you're not in it, you don't want to be in it.
pretty much. Yeah. That sounds about right. Yeah. I'm always, it's that time of year, where it's like, gosh, TurboTax, I guess, or H&R Block is, I guess, what I'm gonna do. But
Yeah. No, that's similar boat as me. I have a hard enough time doing my own taxes.